All right, I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Common Solution Workshop. I have a tradition of this workshop to start off with like a story. And this one, you guys probably heard me say a few times before, but that's the beauty of it, to get you to know it. So once upon a time, there was a convention hall, and it had two very large convention rooms. And room one says, lectures on God's will. All day, sold out. Filled to capacity, staringly. It says, the door number two says, God's will, all seats available. The point is, people love to listen about God's will. But when it comes down to taking the appropriate action to change your life and know God's will, know that God consciousness, people would rather hear a lecture. People would rather, know about God than know God. Temples and churches are packed to the rafters about people talking about deities and gods, and it's just a lecture, and they send people home. How many of them truly have experienced God? Some, I'm sure, but they're not content to getting, they're content with getting that fill of God's will from a lecture. Something very similar happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's meetings, every corner, in some areas, it seems like, but there's meetings that are packed to the rafters every night. Speaker discussion meeting with no talk of the solution. Some guy gets up there, or woman shares for 15 minutes and says, oh yeah, at 14.45 seconds, oh yeah, do the steps. It's a bunch of head nodding going on in agreement with what the person says. Again, they're content about hearing about recovery than living recovery. Right up the street from that meeting, there's a workshop kind of like this one, where we're here to educate you about the steps. It's still a lecture, but we're here to educate about the steps, and people here want to bring that to someone else. And there's people doing the steps in this group as we're going through it. And many of those who attend, like I said, these workshops and stuff like that have taken the appropriate action to experience God through the steps. And do you just want to listen about step work or know step work? That's the question. And that is what is going on in AA. Those doing the work and those who, we know what happens. So in this group, we're focused firmly on recovery. So I want to discuss 4 types of recovery. The first type of recovery I'm going to mention is social recovery. So social recovery is built on the foundation of daily meeting attendance, checking in, group therapy, and total abstinence, right? And they're dependent on daily meeting attendance, the group, and human power, rather than dependence upon God. So deep personality change is not the focal point. So in social recovery, they believe the biggest problem is drinking, and how can I stay stopped today, one day at a time? And that's what sobriety is, this long, difficult struggle that lasts a lifetime, where full relief from the obsession is deemed as impossible. Therefore, relapse is a part of recovery. And their belief is that they are always recovering and never be recovered. And the biggest accomplishment is sobriety time. So the focal point being meeting attendance. You hear slogans like, they live by slogans like 90, do 90 and 90, meeting makers make it, choosing not to drink today, put the plug in the jug. You've heard them all. Don't drink between meetings. Don't drink and go to meetings. Did that before, by the way. I made amends for that. Fake it till you make it. Stick with the winners. You people keep me sober. I could go on and on. They view those who do the steps as dangerous, narrow-minded, arrogant, fundamental step Nazis. You hear it all the time. Who push a religious point of view on them, which they believe it is. But they point to the fact that plenty of people are staying sober without the steps. You hear it all the time. And without God. So such recovery works if you're doing the steps and going to meetings, right? So social recovery, long-term recovery, very low. Relapse is very frequent. The next type is psychological, like almost like mental health, but psychological recovery. And this type of the alcoholics and addicts believe they cannot get better through just step work. Instead, they need a trained therapist. And usually they get introduced to that in rehab or something. I'm not saying go and fire your therapist if you have one. That's not what I'm saying. It's okay as long as you're doing the steps, and they support the steps. But what usually happens a lot of times is step work is replaced with one-on-one therapy and proper medication to deal with mental and emotional problems and the obsession as well that the steps deal with. So this makes the alcoholic convinced that they will struggle greatly with this obsession the rest of their lives, meaning the obsession cannot be eliminated. And rather than focusing on selfishness and being the root of the problem and removing fear and resentments, they focus on treating the source of our pain and teaching new ways to cope with the pain. Been there. The therapist fills the role as a sponsor, and the 12 steps are almost non-existent. Meetings are seen as important and because of the group therapy aspect. And when the alcoholic realizes they are powerless, instead of turning their one life over to the care of God, they're unknowingly turning their one life over to the care of a trained therapist. So the therapist is the higher power and sponsor. And many who do this relapse as soon as they stop seeing a therapist or stop taking their meds. Again, I'm not saying to stop taking your meds. I'm not saying to stop seeing a therapist, because this like social recovery, it works if you're doing the steps. The next is religion or religious. Now, this is not just one type of religion, but many alcoholics like this type because it's familiar and comfortable to them and easier than the steps. Now, religion, saved many of souls over the years, and it can create an awakening, or you can have an experience, but it lacks the deep-seated program of action to grow and recreate those experiences that the real alcoholic, that's a condition, desperately needs for long-term recovery. It may give you an experience sufficient to begin your journey, but may not for long-term recovery. The alcoholic needs a strong, visible program of action with clear-cut directions, written for alcoholics by alcoholics. Many in religious circles see the steps as just one step, turning your life over to God. I had a guy, a pastor told me that one time when we were trying to bring a 12-step group to a particular church. So the rest of the steps are, personality change, long-term recovery is not necessary. Just come to church. And some religions view alcoholism as solely, sin and weakness. And, this type, some go back to the religion they were raised on and attempting to follow. The question arises right then and there is, why are they alcoholic? If they had God when they were drinking, why do they still drink and do dope? Why did they harbor resentments and harm people? If they're so spiritual, why are they spiritually sick? The Big Book answers that question on page 93. And this really hits the nail on the head in this part. It says your prospect, you're talking about working with a sponsee, your prospect may belong to religious domination. And this happened to me. His religious education and training may be far superior than yours. In that case, he is going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows, but he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and yours seem to work so well. He may be the example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. And here's the condition: to be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfishness, that's step 12, and constructive action, 4 through 9. Let him see you're not here, not there to instruct him in religion. Admit he probably knows more about than you do, but call his attention the fact that however deep his faith and knowledge is, he could not apply it or he would not drink. So they never see this because they take, the rigorous honesty, they're not going to look deep within and take the rigorous honesty and let it go. But just as I stated with the other types I mentioned, this works as long as you're doing the steps, and don't give up your religion, don't give up your higher power. That's not what this is about. You go back to Roland Hazard talking to Carl Jung. When Roland Hazard, I'm a good church member, and he says that's not going to give you the vital spiritual experience, right? Many churches today offer the 12 steps. Some do a great job with it, and some, it is what it is. But long-term recovery is low and relapse is frequent. And one thing I've noticed in the people that go the religious route or the church route, whatever you want to call it, is out because they never learned the allergy obsession. After 3 or 4 years of doing that, and you can tell they're not doing the steps, and they bottle everything inside them because they're supposed to be good. And if someone says, "Hey, how about a glass of wine?" And the guy says, "Well, I haven't had wine in 6 years." Boom, they're off again. So the last type we're going to look at is spiritual conversion. Spiritual conversion that's the adoption of a new belief system towards God, and it completely differs the old belief system, and that leads to change in character and understanding, leading to that spiritual transformation that we're looking for, of morals, emotions, ideas, thoughts, actions, lifestyle. As we say, as the big book says, personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. The conversion people, they believe that deep personality change is absolutely necessary for long-term recovery. And they put the 12 steps as an application for that change. So the conversion, of course, is spiritual awakening, spiritual experience, same thing. But they follow the steps as a way of life, following the directions in the big book. And the obsession and self-will is replaced by a personal sense of God consciousness. That's what that type is. And they look at meetings as not a time to check in, but a time to bring to that meeting the spiritual awakening with them, and the hope that the hopeless will hear it, and looking for newcomers to sponsor. And they tell their stories. They speak of deep spiritual personality change, proper application of the steps, representation of the big book, rather than war stories. And they put a strong emphasis on the action steps from 4 through 9. And they refer to their sobriety state as being recovered rather than recovering. So they see social recovery as diluting the steps and keep suffering people from getting the real help they need. And sadly, these step goers are the minority in the fellowship, even though the fellowship is named after the book that these guys push. Long-term recovery, very high, very, very high if you do the steps. Relapse, very, very low. So these 4 types, what's the most popular? Social recovery, with the other ones a little behind it. What's the most controversial? The conversion experience. What's the most dangerous? All 3 of the other ones, and it's not a knock on them. What's the most successful? Conversion experience. The reason I go over that is to give a deep perspective of what recovery is and what recovery isn't, because recovery is more than total abstinence. It's more than picnics. It's more than campouts. It's more than retreats. It's more than alumni meeting and being alumni member of the year, whatever it is. It's not shielding yourself from temptation and checking in. It's not collecting birthday chips. Recovery is definitely not about fighting addiction. We talked about that last night. And still being blinded by the obsession. I don't want to be recovering. I want to be recovered. Recovering is, if I break my leg, recovering is not a fun process until you're recovered and you can dance again. But it's not, I don't want to live on self-will, sitting around with resentment and fear. It's definitely, recovery is not about relapse. Recovery is to get something back. Getting the higher state of God consciousness so we can overcome the malady that we thought was impossible, where the impossible becomes possible, and then growing and maintaining it to get to know it and of course, passing it from one person to the next. So transformation is the key. And to receive that transformation, we need a spiritual remedy. The spiritual remedy, of course, is 12 steps. So we do something fun is we have covered all 12 steps in this group each week. So we're going to go on a journey through the big book and look at all the big book prayers, 12-step prayers, to get a reminder what we're covering in recovery. What we covered in this workshop. So to go kind of fast, but I will offer you guys a list of these as well. So let's start on page 13. And this is what, sorry about that. Forgot to turn that off. Probably a telemarketer. So let's start off on page 13 with, this is called the surrender prayer, or Bill Wilson's surrender prayer, where it says, there I humbly, so this is a surrender prayer. There I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood him, that's a condition, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly, that means completely, under his care and direction. That sounds like 3. I admitted for the first time that of myself, I was nothing, and without him, I was lost. Sounds like step 2. I ruthlessly faced my sins, 4 and 5, and became willing to have my new friend take them away. Root, step 6, root and branch, 6 and 7. I've not had a drink since. That's the surrender prayer. Now you can make that prayer into not just saying I, you can make it right as a prayer. I've heard it done before. We're gonna also look on 13, and this is the direction, this is called the strength and direction prayer on page 13. I was to sit quietly in doubt, and here comes the prayer part, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for my own selfish ends, except my uselessness to myself and others. So now we're going to jump to page 59, and we're going to look at the abandonment prayer. I think some of you guys know this one. We hear it read at meetings a million times. How many times have you heard how it works read at meetings? Combined in here. A lot of how it works. It says, we ask, page 59, we ask, so every time you say the word ask is a prayer. We ask his protection and care with complete abandon. It's deep, it's deep. Let's go over to 63, 3rd step prayer. And we know this one, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness those I would help of thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. The thing that stands out to me, 2 things in this one, to build with me. We're not doing this alone anymore. God's building with us. He's always been there. And then to relieve me of the bondage of self, relieve me of the bondage of pride and self-esteem and all those things. Let's go, now we're gonna look at some 4-step prayers. Let's go to page 66. This is the anger prayer. And some of this leads to the prayer, but I think it all ties together. This is the anger prayer. All these prayers can help you when you're doing these steps. So this was our course. We realized that people who wrong us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, are sick too. Here's the prayer. This is the anger prayer. We pray, we ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person is offended, we say to ourselves, this man is sick. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from angry, thy will be done. You can make that into a beautiful prayer. I mean, God, help me show, spiritually sick people the same tolerance, pity, and patience of a grand sick friend. And then go on the rest of it. Look what else it says, though. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chances of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of everyone. When it says we can't be tolerant, I mean, cannot be helpful to all people, doesn't mean we're not offering help to all people. It says not everyone's going to accept it. It's a very important prayer to make right there. Let's go to 68 and look at the fear prayer. So this is the fear prayer in 68, bottom towards the bottom, excuse me. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once we commence to outgrow fear. One of those miracles right there. And that's a beautiful prayer right there. If you struggle with fear, you should be saying this every day, every morning. Sometimes fear comes in waves a little bit, and I make one fear brings on more. So it's a good little prayer to have. Page 69. Look in the third paragraph on 69. This is the ideals prayer. And it's a simple one. Because remember, the sex inventory is, it's not about intercourse, it's about forming with God a sane, sound ideal for our future sex life. Our voice, with our voice in there, not someone telling us how we're supposed to, be that way. And these ideals are within us, and following them, brings us to who we want to be in growth and where we want to go. Ideals prayer, third paragraph. We ask God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. So whenever you put a list of ideals, no matter where it is, God, help me mold these ideals and help me live up to them, and think what that means. We're also on page 69, bottom of the page. This is the obstacle prayer. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answers will come if we want it. First of all, this not only is a prayer, but it defines meditation very well. We ask God what we should do about each specific matter, and then we wait for the answers. Right answers will come. If I'm waiting for answers, I'm meditating. If we want it, that's the condition. If we want it, we'll do these steps if we want them. All right, page 70, second paragraph. Now people laugh at this name of this prayer. It's the sex prayer. Page 70, second paragraph. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and the strength to do the right thing. It's just a beautiful prayer. The strength to do the right thing, knowing to do the right thing is the definition to spirituality. Is the channeling with the consciousness. Consciousness will guide you to the right things. 75, last paragraph. This, is the bottom of the page on 75, and it talks about the fifth step into the promises. Or no, I'm sorry, it's the directions in there for 5 to 6. Last paragraph. We thank God from the bottom of our hearts that we now know him better. That's one you can do every day. Thank God. Interesting way that is. We're thanking God that we now know him. 75, last paragraph. This is the last one. Last one was the fifth step prayer, by the way, on 75. It's the last paragraph. We thank God from the bottom of our hearts. That's a fifth step prayer. The next one is the freedom prayer. Last paragraph on 75. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we've asked if we've omitted anything. It's a prayer. We're building an arch, which will like a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement, put in our foundation? Have we tried to make more without sand? Remember, you're not doing this alone anymore. The next one, we're on page 76, first paragraph. This is the 6th step prayer. We have emphasized what, emphasize is a big word, that means stressed, highlighted, been vocal. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Remember, step 6 is about letting stuff go. Indispensable is the stuff you keep. Dispensable is stuff you throw away. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are you now ready to let God remove from us all the things we admit are objectionable. Can he now take them all, every one? We still cling to something we'll not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. That's all. Very interesting. It's page 76. This is the 7-step prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you, my fellows. Grant me strength as I go up here to your bidding. Amen. There's the agreement at the end. So be it. Amen. So the first amen of all these prayers. From the 3rd step on to the 7th step at the end, it's almost like all one, from the action in these prayers, it's almost like one long prayer. You know, the action is praying with your feet. There's praying with your voice and praying with your feet. I'm walking the ground. Page 76. This is the 8-step willingness prayer. 3rd paragraph. 8-step willingness prayer. It says, we attempt to sweep away the debris which have accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask, we pray until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. That's the 8-step willingness prayer. We ask until it comes. It's page 79. 2nd paragraph. This is the any lengths prayer, or the 9th step. These are 9th-step prayers coming up now. This is the any lengths prayer, the first 9th-step prayer. Reminding ourselves that we decide to go any lengths to find a spiritual experience. That's quite different than one we just read. Now it's a spiritual experience. We ask, here's the prayer. We ask that we be given the strength and direction to do the right thing. There's that definition of spirituality again. Strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Very interesting. Can you do that? No matter what the personal consequences may be. A lot of people, stop in their tracks there. Page 80, top of the page. This is the consent prayer. Remember, where we consent the person so we can make amends because we don't want to bring them into injuring them or others. It says before, consent prayer, before taking drastic action which may implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission and have consulted with others, ask God to help us. And the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. So we ask God for help in this aspect. We're going to go to 83, top of the page. This is the patient, tolerance, kindness, and love prayer. What an awesome name for a prayer. Look what it says here. So we clean house. Cleaning house is a good thing because you can find stuff, right? So we clean house with the family, asking, this means ask prayer. We ask each morning in meditation that our Creator has showed us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. Isn't that a great way to start your day with those four things right there? Patience, we need that. We definitely need tolerance. There's a difference between patience and tolerance. Kindness and love. Now we're going to look at some 10-step prayers. This is on 84, 2nd paragraph. This is the watch prayer. We're not talking about watching out the window when you're tweaking. No, we're not talking about that. This is the watch prayer. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We talked about this a few weeks ago. When we were the watcher before, we were watching our, other people's emotions and actions, and it was our ego was looking at our ego was looking at our defects, or what we call defects, but it was the watcher of selfish, honesty, resentment, and fear. But now consciousness is the watcher of those. I see through things, the consciousness is going to shift. I'm going to be unselfish. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be calm, and I'm going to have courage. But when those negative ones crop up, I ask God at once to remove them. That's the watch prayer. 85, first paragraph. This is God's will's God's will prayer. Every day, that doesn't leave a day out here. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into some of our activities, all of our activities. So it's not asking us that every day we must carry God's will. We also must carry it during every day into every activity. Here's the prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will be done. Now, here's what's great about this prayer. It's in the area of step 11. So it's telling me when I move stuff out of the way in 10, this is the question I ask always. I just don't go, I feel better now. I'm going to go back out and prove my point. No, God, how can I serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Reminding yourself every day into all your activities. Every day. It's a great prayer you should start bringing into your stuff every day. Now we got some 11-step prayers. 86, end of first paragraph. This is the at night forgiveness prayer. Now this might come across as a little bit religious, so to speak, because it's about asking God's forgiveness, but you can mold it wherever you want to mold it. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Let's go to page 86, second paragraph, morning intentions prayer. And this is one you kind of mold into a prayer. We consider our plans for the day. So you're tying that's all part of prayer and meditation. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially, now so he tells us what to ask him for, especially that it be divorced, separated from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can apply our mental faculties with assurance. After all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life we place on a much higher plane when it's cleared of wrong, when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. 86, last paragraph. This is the indecision prayer. There's a lot of prayers in step 11. What a surprise. And thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may face fear. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision. Here's the meditation part. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're surprised how the right answers will come. Meditation, right answers will come after we tried this for a while. There's a condition of meditation and prayer, trying it for a while. Every great chef that's ever existed will tell you they get good at cooking because they try it for a while and they're bad at it for a while. 87, second paragraph. This is the freedom from self-will prayer. Second paragraph, 87. Freedom from self-will prayer. We usually conclude our period of meditation with a prayer. So he told us here what we conclude our meditation with. We usually conclude our period of meditation with a prayer that will be shown all through the day what the next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask, especially from freedom from self-will, freedom from instincts. And we are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We heard that already. We may pray, we may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful to never pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work. You can easily see why. He's giving us like a form of a topic of almost like we're praying for here. And how we conclude our meditation with prayer. And it's a simple one. It's an ad-libbing of prayer, but it's a freedom from self-will. This is 87, bottom of the page. This is the during the day prayer. And look at this one. And people love this one. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask, pray for the right thought or action. We don't try to think of the right thought or action. We pray for it. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves in more prayer, many times each day, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done. It's a great mantra. That's a great way to start off your meditation. We are in less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or morbid reflection. How can you even pray or meditate with all that stuff going on? We become much more efficient We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up foolish energy as we did when we're trying to run or show ourselves. If you burn up your energy, meditation is very weak. Page 164. This is the 12th step. What's it? Prayer for all, pretty much. This is prayer for the person who is still sick. So the person who is still sick prayer, whatever you want to call it. It says, ask him, ask God in your morning meditation, what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answer will come if your own house is in order, step 10. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Remember, meaning you can't give love away to others if you don't have it yourself. You hear what he's saying here is you can't be unselfish if you don't have it yourself. You can't transmit what you haven't got. If you're selfish and thinking of your own needs, you're not going to even understand this stuff. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. So these prayers represent the program of recovery. There is no other program. The only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. It is your choice to do the steps or don't do the steps. The difference is a 2% recovery rate versus an 85+ recovery rate. If you want freedom, all you have to do is get the step guide and go to it in the big book, whichever way you do it. There's no wrong way. It's like I tell sponsees, there's no wrong way to sponsor if you got the book. So this is page 164. This is another abandonment prayer. And it's the closing. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God, or as you don't understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. That's all your faults, all your false dreams, all the old ideas. Look within and admit the illusion you've been living. Put it to bed. Put the shit to bed that you don't need to have anymore. Look what he says. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. So you move from the abundance of self to the awaken to the fact that you are provided for with the condition you stay close and perform his work well. Fitting yourself to the maximum service of God and people about us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. It's a beautiful place to be. That's the common solution, fellowship of the Spirit, all the same thing. You will surely meet some of us as we trudge the road to happy destiny. That fellowship of the Spirit is a beautiful place. That's the world of the Spirit. Surely meet some of us as we walk the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Welcome home. You are awake. The invisible is now visible. So I'm going to share the screen in a second. And I had to throw this together at the last minute because I found out I didn't have a hard copy. So this kind of messy a little bit, but when I put it up there. So Bill considered the 12 steps as spiritual principles. And I believe that people will say, oh, there's principles within the principles. No, I don't like all that. I believe there's virtues and ethical values within each step. So a virtue, what's a virtue? It's the quality of doing something right. Call it moral excellence. Ethical values is ethical actions that have to do with doing the right thing that lead always to change, wholeness, and growth. So let's take a look at these. I'm going to share the screen. This is top secret stuff. No, I'm kidding. The first one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. The value there is powerlessness. Wait, there's value in powerlessness? Hell yeah, there is. It's a very spiritual step. So think about this. I mean, alcohol is a deadly, incurable disease that we are powerless to to overcome our own power. Doctor's opinion gives us the medical estimate of the nature of alcoholism, that we have a mental obsession, physical allergy. That's why we're powerless. You have to take that literally. We're powerless over alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. Whatever it is, anything. It doesn't say I'm powerless over anything else, not people, places, and things. So, after many years of denial, recovery can begin with the simple admission of being powerless. The most famous line in the Tao Te Ching and within the Tao's by Lao Tzu is, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step. Step one is the beginning of that journey. Step one begins our journey. Step two, came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore sanity. Hope. It's hope. It's a mirror of step one. Power, powerlessness, right? It's a mirror. Step two is telling us we need to seek power to restore sanity. That's hope. What is hope? What is hope? Hope is the desire for fulfillment. When you did dope, you had hope. When you drink, you had hope. Do you get the desire for fulfillment? This is a different kind of hope we're looking for. We're looking for the fulfillment we want from these steps. A deep confidence that something can happen and will happen. Just when you think all is lost, there's hope. The road recovery is built on hope. Step two in the book has vital information of how and where we find God. And how do we find God? 4 through 9. It also tells us where we find God, deep down within. That spark, that's what's been us, that we've known was there. Step 3, made a decision to turn our moral lives over to the care of God as we understood him. That's commitment. Nothing sufficient ever happens without commitment. How good are you at commitment? Commitment is a promise. If you're not good at it, have you walked with God in commitment? Because commitment is a promise to be completely dedicate and obligate yourself to anything. Commitment is it determines your future. If you commit yourself to a spouse or something, you're committing to, it's going to determine your future, where you go with it. You become what you're committed to. Step 3 is about commitment. Completely giving yourself to the simple program. It's all about commitment. It sets the recovery plan in motion. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of others, no, of ourselves. That's uncovering. Uncover. That's the ethical part right there. Uncovering. Uncover means to reveal what previously had not been what? Known. What not been known. Are we afraid of the known? I mean, everyone says, oh, I'm afraid of the unknown. No, no one's afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of the known because we know all the stuff, the bad stuff we're carrying around. We're afraid of the known. That's why people don't want to do step 4. They're not afraid that what God might do. They're afraid of what God might think or others might think. In step 4, we are uncovering the truth about us by inventorying our resentments, fears, harm, sex conduct. We uncover why we have them. We begin to see the destructiveness. We begin to see that alcohol is just a symptom of the problem, and our real problem is misdirected instincts, pride, self-esteem, and so forth. Third column. The second dependence to paper, we begin our journey of turning life over to care of God. Our journey home starts. 5, admitted to God and to ourselves and to the human being the exact natures of our wrongs. Discover means become aware of something that previously had not been known. Why do you think we have awakening? That's why it's a new awareness. When you get new aware, you get more awake. Anything. Anything. If there's a car across the street, I thought it was a cool car, but then someone tells you what kind of car it is, you become aware, you become more, I guess more, I don't want to say the word awake, become more awake. Oh, I know what that car can do. Same, imagine if you become aware of the spirit within you and the power, the God consciousness. Step 5, we discover the obstacles in our path. That's what we're doing here. We uncover in step 4 our wrongs, and 5, we discover what drove us to those wrongs, breaking us apart from blind beliefs and theories and conditionings that we maybe were since childhood. Awareness begins. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Discard means to throw away something that is no longer useful to you. We love holding on to stuff that's bad. This is much more than an old bicycle we're keeping in our garage. In step 5, we discover our defects. In 6, we're asking God for the strength. But we're letting God take this to discard these defects, removing the self-will that stands between you and God. Let go of those old beliefs so we can experience God within. That's the essence of the steps. Are not about gaining anything. They're about losing stuff so I can have that channel to God. It's all about losing stuff. 4 and 5 help us face and be rid of the things that are blocking us. 6 is the pinnacle step, because we've done every step for the ability to do 6. A lifetime of self-will run riot can come to a screeching halt right there by letting God. And the ability to let go is like being held captive in a cage. Step 6 is opening that cage. 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Humbly, kindly, whatever you want to call it, morally. So the second we let go, we have surrendered. I'm giving up control. I'm truly giving my control over to God. This is where step 3 really happens. This is where I truly abandon myself to him. I can, he can, I must let him. Ultimate trust, trusting God with my life, handing my life over. We surrender a lifetime of self-will, just like I said before, ends. We ban ourselves of this way of life. Step 8, made a list of people, all people we have harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. Willingness is the value here. Step 8 is more than just a list. It's about willingness, which is to be ready. Amends scares the shit out of a lot of people. And there are some we're not willing to make amends to. Here we ask God for the strength to be willing to make amends to them all. Become willing to make amends is the difficult part. Step 9, may direct amends to such people wherever possible, not whenever, wherever, except do so when injure them or others. Repair is the value here. Making amends can be a bitter pill for some to swallow, but for those who are seriously about recovery, it's the greatest medicine you can take to help you take away pride and guilt. If I let go of my defects, let God take them away, why wouldn't you go out and repair the past? The only thing left to do is to go and repair the damage you've done. We do that, of course, by making amends. Freedom. And when we make it right with another, the awakening, that change happens with us. A lot of times that's maybe the first time you feel the God consciousness. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory. When wrong, probably admit it. Continue is the principle here. Can't get past that word. Entering into a new personal relationship with God, we must maintain and grow and must be built on continuance. Continue keeping and doing 49 in all our affairs. Continue to further and mature your spiritual development with the same action that created it, that awoke in you. Now imagine doing it with God consciousness involved. We continue because we will continue to make mistakes. We are no longer learning how to do the program. We're learning how to make the program a way of life, moment to moment. Living in step 10. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Improve is the value here. It's time to know God, have union with God, and know this consciousness, know who we truly are, that we are a spirit in the image and likeness of God. Improve means to make better. If we want to improve our relationship with God, with another person, we spend time with that person. Same thing here. Improve is the essence of step 11. Change and change often. It's like the snake. Once in a while, to go shed its skin a little bit more, and each time it does, it knows more about it, and it gets more beautiful. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening, there's all these steps. We try to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics, and practice these principles in all our affairs. A little twist there, because I said the original one. That's the original 12th step, is, try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice principles in our affairs. So carry is the value here. Part of living these steps as a way of life means it's your responsibility to pay it forward, help others as you were helped. When we carry something, we're taking it from one place to the next. A guy told me years ago, if your program isn't portable, you don't have a program. You can't throw your sponsor in your suitcase when you go on a trip. Some people, I don't know, I don't want to get into all that. But that is what we do. We carry this message, take it from one person to the next. And Bill knew that faith without works was dead. To survive, we must carry this message to the next person. He said, we will take on a new meaning. Carrying this message is the greatest thing you ever do. Sorry, I had that kind of. But look at all these. I love these steps. I don't love them because I go to book studies and do workshops. Alan Watts has a great saying that says, the menu is not the meal. The menu is not the meal. Looking at the steps is not the meal. The menu is not the meal. Meanings is not knowing about the steps. I'm sorry, meaning, not meetings. Meaning is not knowing about the steps. It's knowing the steps from personal experience with that changes you. Think about that again. The menu is not the meal. Looking at this is not going to give you fulfillment. It's doing them. It's doing them. We have to realize that alcoholism, it took us away from being who we are. But now I know I am. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? Comes to mind. All this stuff happens. The 12 steps not only remove this obsession, but it brings us to the person that we always intended to be. And all that is what has been inside us since day one, consciousness. So it removes the self-will that stands between you and that power, and that spark. So you can be restored to sanity. Some of it is just turning you back to the person you were as a child, where you didn't resent anybody. If you did, you held resentment for 30 seconds. If you broke something, you apologized for it. And if you were scared, you called out to your dad, the father. We held resentments for 30 years. We hurt people and got revenge. So, until we take step 4, that's all we'll ever be. 4 through 12, we will stay controlled by self-will and ego, and we'll always try shielding ourselves from some type of temptation, no matter what it is. So true change consists of the ability to look deeply within your innermost dwellings of your being and opening those closets that have been locked down and letting go what you no longer need. All I know is these steps rocketed me to another dimension. And one moment I felt like I was nothing, and second later, I was awakened to a brand new reality that took me some time to comprehend. I comprehended that through step 11. More would be revealed. Always, every day, more would be revealed. With a blink of an eye, you're hopeless, and a blink of an eye, you feel you're part of life. And when you no longer suffer the illusion that we're separated from God and other people, that's what ego is the illusion. It creates this illusion that I am different from others, I'm better than others, I'm separated from other people. The spirit awakens. We smash that illusion, and we're separated, and the spirit is awoke. And that kind of radical change in personality is absolutely necessary for long-term recovery. It's not about recovery anymore. It's about a better way of life. So until we take the action of what we just talked about, and for the last 16 weeks, we cannot live a normal life. In other words, instead of being driven by, we can have a new life. Instead of being driven by self-will and ego, we're driven by consciousness, which is always going to tell me what the right thing is. But it's not a question, it's automatic. And getting rid of false self and discovering your true self. That's what recovery is. One thing is what I love about AA meetings, everyone that walks in the door, recovered alcoholic, people who think they're alcoholic, all that stuff. What I love about people in the rooms, there's no rules. We're anonymous. There's no one in charge. There's no leaders. There's no president. It's just a group of people who want to help each other. And what some of the people will stand out as they're altruistic beings that are disguised as God. They're God in disguise. That's what I learned. The most beautiful people I learned are God in disguise. That's what I love about AA. And I couldn't sum it up any better than, I'm going to read, you won't have it in front of you, so I'm just going to read it. It's from the 3rd edition, big book, and it's a story called Flower of the South. It's my all-time favorite story. I'm just going to read the last few paragraphs, but this is a woman, I can't remember her name, sorry. But just listen what she says. Take yourself back to being one of the first 100. This is what she said. I wish I could tell you that all that AA has done for me and all that I think and feel about AA, but it's something that I've experienced and have never been able to put into words. I know I must work as long as I live. I know that it's only by working at it that I can stay sober and have a happy life. It is an endless career. And it has changed not simply one department of my life, it has changed my whole being. It has been a fellowship with God and man that has held good wherever I've turned and whatever I've done. It is a way of life that pays as it goes every step of the way. Its conversations have been wonderful, rich, and rewarding. It has made life 1,000 times easier and simple than it did in the endless compromises and conflicts which I lived before. It pays daily in more harmonious action with fellow man and ever clearer insight into true meaning of life. And in the answering of love and gratitude wherever and whenever I've been an instrument of God's will in the lives of others. It's all these ways I've experienced every growing measure and beyond those expectations and rewards, a joy which I've never been imagined. The words of Dr. Bob and Bill are with me all the time, every day. Dr. Bob said, love and service keep us dry. And Bill always said, we must remember our first duty is face-to-face help for the alcoholic who still suffers. Bob tells about keeping it simple and not lousing this up. It is the last thing I ever heard him say. And I think there are some who at times try to read extra messages and complexities into the steps. To me, AA is within the reach of every alcoholic because it can be achieved by any walk of life because the achievement is not ours, but God's. I feel that there is no situation too difficult, none too desperate, none too happy, no unhappiness too great to overcome in the great fellowship of the Spirit. It's pretty deep. Let's close with the meditation. You can do it as you will. a little guided meditation. So we are all a vessel of God's love. God is not simply love, he is love. God is love. So when you think of God's love, what comes to mind? What feelings arise? What emotions arise? The big question is, what does God's love look like? Have you ever taken time to consider what God's love looks like? Take a moment. Is it beautiful? Relaxing? Perhaps perfect? Maybe it's something simple like a sunset, or when you're hiking that great hike up in the hills. For some, it might be the ocean or nature. Perhaps family comes to mind. Maybe it's something way deeper than that. A connection, the consciousness of your words and actions, being unselfish. It's the consciousness of good deeds, random acts of kindness, and being present for miracles. Maybe it's when you finally have the strength to let God take the stuff away. Maybe it's that moment where you love your enemies, love all. Take a moment to consider what God's love looks like. One night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with God. As life flourished across the sky, he noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonging to him, the other to God. He noticed that at the lowest and saddest point of his life, there was only one set of footprints. Dismayed, he asked, "You said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. I don't understand. When I needed the most, you weren't there." God replied, "I've never left you behind. During that time of trial and hardship, when you saw only one set of footprints, that's when I carried you." That's what God's love looks like. In the Course in Miracles, it states, when you know what walks beside you at all times, you will never truly ever again experience doubt. When you know what walks beside you at all times, you will never experience doubt again. I'm going to close with the Thomas Merton prayer, one of my favorite prayers that's ever existed. My God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I'm following your will does not mean I actually am doing so. But I believe the desire to please you doesn't in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen.